I'd like to call the September 2017 meeting of the Board of Education to order. We'll start with an invocation. Ms. Etheridge.
Good evening. I'd like to read a little chapter from Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and it's all small stuff. Chapter 62, Do One Thing at a Time. The other day, I was driving on the freeway and noticed a man who, while driving in the fast lane, was shaving, drinking a cup of coffee, and reading the newspaper. Perfect, I thought to myself, as just that morning I was trying to think of an appropriate example to point out the craziness of our frenzied society. How often do we try to do more than one thing at once? We have cordless phones that are supposed to make our lives easier, but in some respects they make our lives more confusing. My wife and I were at a friend's home for dinner a while ago and noticed her talking on the phone while simultaneously answering the door, checking on dinner, and changing her daughter's diaper. After she washed her hands, of course. Many of us have the same tendency when we're speaking to someone and our mind is somewhere else, or when we're doing 3 or 4 chores all at one time. When you do too many things at once, it's impossible to be present, moment-oriented. Thus, you not only lose out on much of the potential enjoyment of what you are doing, but you also become far less focused and effective. An interesting exercise is to block out periods of time where you commit to doing only one thing at a time. Whether you're washing dishes, talking on the phone, driving a car, playing with your child, talking to your spouse, or reading a magazine, try to focus only on that one thing. Be present in what you're doing. Concentrate. You'll notice 2 things beginning to happen. First, you'll actually enjoy what you're doing, even something mundane like washing dishes or cleaning out a closet. When you're focused rather than distracted, it enables you to become absorbed and interested in your activity, whatever it might be. Second, you'll be amazed at how quickly and efficiently you'll get things done. Since I've become more present moment-oriented, my skills have increased in virtually all areas of my life. Writing, reading, cleaning house, and speaking on the phone. You can do the same thing. It all starts with your decision to do one thing at a time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to call up Steve Bassnight, J.P. Knapp Early College Principal, who will introduce the person who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Mr. Chairman, board members, Mr. Stefanik, I would like to introduce our newly elected senior class president, student body president, and current student board member, Mr. Tyler Little, to lead us in the pledge.
Would you all please rise?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Congratulations, Tyler.
Yes, congratulations.
Dr. Dominic, can we fit all those titles on that nameplate over there?
We'll probably have to give him 2 or 3 extra ones there. Okay, next, School Spotlight. Principal Steve Bassnight, J.P. Knapp Early College High School students and staff.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you very much for allowing us to come here and talk a little bit about one of my favorite subjects, and that's JP Knapp. We want to talk tonight a little bit about the data that we use on a daily basis. This is very much a snapshot of the kinds of data we use, but I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the things that we look at and some of the accomplishments that we can chart numerically. So starting off, there we go. Starting off, we have a chart of student enrollment since JP Knapp came into existence in the 08-09 year. And as you can see, we've had a pretty steady climb since 12-13 of increased enrollment at JP Knapp. And we are currently this year at, for the first time, over 300 students at JP Knapp. That's significant. Hang on to that thought. We just talked in the work session about EVOS growth scores. In my book, growth is the number. We talk all the time at JP Napa about if you take care of growth, if you make sure every child grows, proficiency scores will take care of themselves. So that's one of the emphases that we have at NAP, is to make sure each individual student shows growth. Now, that may seem a little more daunting than it is. If you address students based on their individual needs, where they are when they walk in the room, individually, not as a class, and then where they need to be in order to move on, then you get a pretty clear picture of what growth looks like. This is a big number to us. This is what happens after students come to us. This isn't tracking proficiency scores of students in the kindergarten through 8th grade. This is what happens when a student comes to us at JP Nap in 1 year. And as long as those numbers are positive, and as you can see, the purple lines continue to climb, those are good numbers. Which gets me to sort of where I'm going. These are the number of graduates that we've had since our first graduating class who graduate with an associate's degree, a certificate, or a diploma. Last year we had 31 of those, obviously the highest year. This is the percentage of our graduates that are graduating from high school with an associate's degree. Sort of plateaued at 65, but we expect that to change. Now like I said a while ago, I ask you to remember that enrollment number that has been constantly climbing. That enrollment number is climbing, but what we're doing with those students when they get to JP Nap is also climbing. And having said that, we would like our 2 student board members to come down and give us a hand, if you don't mind. Two years ago, I stood here and presented a check to you, a mock check, I wish. Yeah, really, I bet. In the amount of, I believe it was $252,000. Our graduating class this year, the kids that just graduated, using a calculation for average number of credits taken at $76 a credit, and then what is approximately $600 per student per semester in textbooks, you saved, by supporting this program, the parents of JP Nap students $336,448 in tuition and textbooks over the 4 years that this most recent graduating class was there. And I just wanted to say thank you, and we would like to present this check to you as our gratitude. So thank you very much.
Thank you. That's impressive.
Thank you.
Mr. Bass Knight, I just want to say I was at your school on the first day of school, and the sense of pride among the students was impressive. They were happy to be there, supportive of one another. I loved what you did for your seniors with all the underclassmen clapping as they walked in. So hats off to you all for doing such a great job.
If I'm not mistaken, JP Nap is the only A school in the region. Is that correct?
One of very few, if not the
In the
only
state,
one.
yeah.
Yes. I'll have that data now that all the other school districts have released their data publicly. I can do my tracking of how many A buildings, how many B buildings statewide, like I did last year.
Great. Thank you. Next, recognition of the 2017-18 Student Art Calendar winners. Superintendent Stefanik and the Board of Education. If the board would just come down front with me.
Is that okay? Dr. Dobney and board members, we are pleased to recognize the 2017-2018 Student Art Calendar winners. And just for the public's information, the art pieces were put into a district calendar format, but the originals are also hanging in the central office across the street. So at any time, if the public wants to come in and see the work of these talented artists, it's there for the rest of the year, hanging up on all the walls in the central office. So we'll announce all the winners, and when you hear your name, please come up. And I believe Ms. Jones has a few items for you, and you can get the congratulations of the Board of Education. Art calendar winners, elementary, K through 2. First place, Austin Belvin from Jarvisburg. Second place is Hayden Martin from Jarvisburg. Third place, Connor Perelka from Central. Okay, it doesn't look like Connor's able to be with us tonight. Honorable mentions, Kaylee Barth from Moyock. Honorable mention, Cameron Jacoby Wessel from Shawboro. And honorable mention, Cheyenne Garland from Knott's Island. Oh, sorry. No glasses. Honorable mention, Regina Kipp from Griggs. Sorry about that. Moving on to grades 3 through 5. First place, Sydney Belvin, Jarvisburg. Second place, Tristan Guinazzo, Knott's Island. Third place, Gavin Verdaro, Central Elementary. Honorable mentions, Kyria Harrett from Shawboro. Antonio Hendricks, Knott's Island. Jaden Figueroa from Central. Aiden Daniels from Jarvisburg. August Huang from Moyock. And Jasmine Still from Griggs. Grades 6 through 8 division. First place, Ethan Randall, Currituck Middle. Second place, Peyton Vaughn, Currituck Middle. Third place, Cassidy Davis, Moyock Middle. Honorable mention, Kaylee Creeley, Moyock Middle. Emily Hempton, Moyock Middle. Megan Cumber, Currituck Middle. Madeline Sori, Currituck Middle. All right, moving on to the high school division. First place, Jairus Ingram, Currituck High School. Second place, Cassie Jacobs. Third place, Cassie Jacobs. Honorable mention, Cheyenne Haynes. Alex DeLuca. Madison Miller. Melissa Gilbert. And Lauren Santa. Photography. First place, Brianna Carroll. Brianna also had an honorable mention in this category. Second place, Kaylee Henry. Third place, Allie Vermillion. Honorable mention, Madison Phillips. Allie Vermillion. Kaylee Henry. Once again, Brianna Carroll. Artists, if you would come back up on the blue carpet by the board members, we'll get a photo of all of you together with the board.
I'm not good at this, sorry.
You got a grandbaby. You need to learn how to work that thing.
I tell you, I should be doing it really well. Instead, I just kept going back to me. All right, let's do a big smile. And I want to do one closer on you. Thank you, very good.
Congratulations to all of our art winners. Dr. Dobney and fellow board members, I'd also like to recognize the art teachers in the district who provide the opportunities for these students to show off their talents. And so thank you to all the art teachers, K through 12.
Say this just about every year. This program is near and dear to me because I helped start it. Oh, geez. Had to be about 25 years ago now. And I was telling one of the student art winners that I never had commercial art in my office when I was superintendent here. I always had student art. And I just appreciate the talent of our young artists. And probably the reason I appreciate it, I can't draw a stick figure. So anyway, it never ceases to amaze me just how good and how creative they are. So believe me, thank you.
Absolutely.
And if you have homework, you're more than welcome to leave right now.
And if you don't have homework and you want to celebrate the awards, you can still leave.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Do I have a second? Any discussion? Okay, have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, agenda is approved. Next item, public comment session. The public comment session is a time when an individual or group can address the board about our schools. This is not a time to speak about issues or concerns involving identifiable personnel or students. Matters of this nature should be submitted in writing to the superintendent, and your concerns will be addressed. Individuals or groups will be called up in the order in which they signed up and will be asked to limit the remarks to 3 minutes. Also, when you come up, please state your name and address. And we have one person that signed up, Kelly Peters.
Hi, I wrote this down. My name's Kelly Peters, 313 South End Road, Knott's Island, North Carolina, and I'm here to speak about the Knott's Island bus situation. We are a small school, of course, as you all know, and we went from 2 buses down to 1, which most of our kids were able to get home in probably about 30 minutes. Now, at first, the beginning of the year, it went to an hour to hour and a half difference for some of them, both in the mornings or at night. It just depended on how the route went. My biggest concern, at first it didn't concern my daughter. My biggest concern was she's only in first grade. It was the big bus that I think I heard maybe 70 children. The bus driver, he was trying to figure out routes and everything. And she was excited because she was able to sit in the very back with a 5th grader, which, I'm like, that's fine, but that's still a, big age difference. That was just a personal thing for me. But it has been, I guess, parents were very upset. It was changed. Right now they're doing a double bus run, which of course that fell onto kids were getting picked up and going to school. So they're either there earlier in the morning or they stay after school and get home. Well, then that falls on our staff, our small staff who are wonderful, but they are, they do so much already. So of course we have that going on. Let me see, I lost my train of thought. To me, this is one of the this is just the tip of the iceberg. I am just getting back into the school since my daughter is only in first grade, but I'm a lifelong resident, went to Knott's Island Elementary, Currituck County, and so I'm aware of all the issues that we've had before, all through the years. But now that I'm back in it with my daughter, just this year alone, Knott's Island we lost a bus. Our librarian is now pulled back into the classroom. She's teaching. She's doing STEM projects. I'm not sure the exact time, but she's not in the library, so we don't have a full-time librarian. And we lost an assistant. I think she's doing something else in the county or, assisting. So and I understand about budget, I understand about numbers. We are a small community. I believe we have a great school. Our staff is wonderful. I'm on the PTA. I know how great they are. They always pull together. They work hard. We always seem to, do a lot for our children. But to me, instead of just always telling us it's numbers, it's numbers, it's numbers, we can't control the population or who's moving to our community. I just asked maybe we look into some solutions. I know a few years ago, when I went there, it was K through 7. I know a few years ago, we moved 6th grade back over here. I don't know if that could be brought up to to work of maybe sending them, putting them back. I thought sixth grade came over here to be involved in sports, but someone told me, and I'm not sure, that sixth grade is not involved in sports at the middle school. It's seventh and eighth. I don't know if that's correct or not. So I don't know if we could that would help our numbers. And then the other thing that I don't know if it could be addressed, but we have the community Gibbs Woods. They are kind of in the middle of Moyock and Knott's Island. They do have a Knott's Island address. If you send something or go to them, they are in our zip code. I've heard there's, maybe 10 or 15 kids. If they, instead of sending them to Moyock, which is, pretty full, maybe think about putting them, to Knott's Island. I don't know how parents would feel about that, but, it would help everyone. It would maybe help with our bus situation. Then we would only have one bus coming through. So I just ask maybe we can try to look at options to help us instead of just keep taking away from us. There's only so much that our staff can keep having piled on them without breaking. And we have some really great teachers and staff there, so I hate to lose any of them. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. And we'll be addressing the busing issue in, 2 more agenda items. Okay, next, student board member reports. Jenna, Tyler, Colin, and Keelan.
Good evening, board. So tonight we are going to start off with Knott's Island Elementary. So Knott's Island Elementary is focused on starting out in a positive mindset. We had a great turnout for our open house. Staff and students are looking forward to the upcoming year. Our first PTA meeting is September 11th at 6:30. Fall pictures will be on September 13th. From Currituck County High School, the Knights are back and are ready for a great 2017-2018 school year. We look forward to hosting our open house night for parents on September 14th from 5 to 7 p.m. During the month of September, the Knights are highlighting the character trait of integrity. Staff and students are participating in activities sponsored by the CCHS Honor Corps and our PBIS team. Our fall sports teams are off to a great start. If you get the chance, come on out and support the Knights. For lots of updates and information about what's happening at CCHS, please like our Facebook page and check out our website. From Currituck County Middle School, the Raiders are ready to rock in the 2017-2018 school year. Our staff participated in our first ever retreat on August 15th at the Kitty Hawk Pier and set in motion commitments our staff is making to boost student achievement. Turnout for the open house was outstanding, and students and parents were excited to see physical changes to our building, including the facelift of our lockers located in the lobby area and power washing of the exterior of the school. We held a State of the Raiders address this past Wednesday that concluded with the entire student body brainstorming ways to celebrate our successes. The data collected from this brainstorming session will be brought to our PBS committee and hopefully be put into action. Our first dance of the year will be held on September 22nd. Parents are invited to attend the first in a series of workshops designed to help support parents and guardians who are raising a middle school child. Our first workshop will take place on September 26th and is titled, Help, Aliens Have Abducted My Child. I will now turn it over to Keelan.
Good evening, everyone. Next up, we have Griggs Elementary School. So Griggs Elementary had a great open house and first week of school. Fall Picture Day is tomorrow, September 8th. Our Grandparents' Day luncheon will be Monday, September 11th. Book Fair will be held next week, September 11th to the 15th. And PTO will be sponsoring a back-to-school fall festival on Friday, September 29th from 5 to 7. And then next up, we have Jarvisburg Elementary. So Jarvisburg Elementary has started the year with enthusiastic students and staff. After a record-breaking turnout at open house, the first day of school started with our Monday meeting. Monday meetings allow the entire school to come together and recognize the accomplishments of staff and students alike. We dance, we celebrate, and prepare for the week ahead together. We in each meeting with our chant, I am strong, I am smart, I am loved. Jarvisburg Elementary students, rise above. Principal Kelly Flora also spent time the first week getting into each classroom and reading to the students. We look forward to Family Reading Night, which will take place on September 14th, 2017 from 5 to 7. Join us for food, fellowship, and a night of reading/instructional support. The staff is also preparing for their monthly professional development learning walk opportunities and their book study, with the focus being on the various components of rigor. Driversburg Elementary is off to do great things. Next up,
Thank you. I just want to say thank you all for coming out tonight. Please stay safe whether or not these hurricanes are coming. They are dangerous, so keep that in mind. First on the docket tonight is Moyock Middle. The MMS Bulldogs are off to a great start to the 2017 and 2018 school year. Our open house was a tremendous success with a great number of students and parents in attendance. The 6th grade students were excited this week as they received their Chromebooks. MMS has a positive momentum with students and staff aiming to make this year the best year ever. MMS has the first scrimmage volleyball and soccer games this afternoon. Go Bulldogs! Next up, Shawboro Elementary. Shawboro has a great turnout for open house this year. We hosted a scavenger hunt for the students to assist them updating all of their information. We used this scavenger hunt to raffle off 3 backpacks of school supplies and an SES t-shirt. Tomorrow, September 8th, is Picture Day. September 12th at 6 p.m. will be our first PTO meeting and our annual Title I night. We will also hold our annual Fall Festival on October 20th. We have created a lot of positive changes for this year. Finally, JP Knapp Early College. September 14th, JP Knapp administration will be meeting with representatives from DPI concerning accreditation review results. September 18th is a teacher workday at JP Knapp. September 20th, Mr. Bassnight and Ms. Fallon will be presenting to the faculty at COA Elizabeth City. September 26th, the class of 2018 class ring presentation will be held at the Media Center for seniors. September 29th, Mr. Davenport will be taking his fitness class to the Adventure Park, and October 6th will be the end of the first 9-week grading period at JP Knapp Early College. And with that, I turn it over to Colin.
Next we have Moyock Elementary. The Panthers are off to a great start. We had a great open house in the first week of school. Our book fair is this week and next week and ends on Friday, September 15th. Parents, make sure to sign up for your child's class dojo in order to keep up with their events in their classroom. MES is also planning a community fall festival on October 20th, so keep an eye out for more details. We are looking for a great year at MES. Next we have Central Elementary. Central Elementary has started the year off right with a scavenger hunt open house night. We are gearing up for a luncheon to honor our grandparents on Friday, September 15th. We will also have our Title I Fall in Love with Learning evening on Thursday, September 28th from 5:30 to 7, which will include dinner, shopping at the book fair, and educational spotlights to highlight instructional programs at the school as well as our community, including a Triple P parenting presentation. Great things are happening at Central. To stay up to date, please check our website, follow us on Facebook, and sign up for Class Dojo with your child's teacher.
Jenna, Tyler, Colin, and Keelan, thank you. Next, field trip request, Superintendent Stefanik.
Thank you, Dr. Dobney. Fellow board members, we have a couple of, believe it or not, competitions that mark the beginning of our winter sports season at the high school. Girls varsity basketball is going to a tournament in Raleigh on November 9th and 10th. Had to double check that before I checked the calendar because November 9th is a Thursday, and I had to see who starts a tournament on Thursdays instead of Fridays and Saturdays. And as it turns out, they're traveling after school on Thursday night, and the tournament really is Friday. Friday is a holiday. There's no school, so the students get to travel to the tournament, and they don't miss any school time. So that's positive for everybody. And the cheer competition group from Currituck High School is also going to Raleigh on December 2nd and 3rd for a cheer competition.
Okay, thank you. Is either Steve or Denise here? Or did they leave already?
They already left.
Because I was just curious.
They had homework.
Can't remember if it was Tyler who mentioned that they're going to do a presentation to the COA faculty or something?
Yes. September 20th, they'll be presenting to the faculty at COA in Elizabeth.
Okay. Any idea what the topic and stuff is that they're going to speak on? Or
Yes, I believe Principal Bassnight informed me that they were invited to speak because our students have had such success in obtaining associate's degrees and certifications at the College of the Albemarle that they just want to talk about the students that participate in the dual credit programs.
Oh, okay, great.
That's great.
Thank you. Next item, Knott's Island busing report. Superintendent Stefani, Transportation Director Matt Mullins, and Transportation Supervisor Jimmy Calvert.
Thank you, Dr. Dobney. When our bus routes were created for this year, there were some concerns raised because some bus routes had changed, or the number of buses at some schools had changed. Just wanted to present some information on how we create bus routes for any given year and what the state procedures are in terms of maintaining an efficiency rating in the school district. And so I'll invite Matt Mullins to the microphone to give some background information, and then if need be, we can answer some questions specifically about the Knott's Island busing situation.
Thank you, Mr. Stefanik. Good evening, everybody.
Hello.
I will briefly speak on school bus transportation efficiency. Basically, school bus transportation efficiency, maximum efficiency, is a goal that each school system, each county's transportation department strives to achieve each year when they sit down to create or revise their bus schedules for the year. North Carolina Department of Public Instruction's Transportation Bureau gives us a basic framework, a formula to achieve that goal. And basically it's pretty simple. It's higher ridership equals higher efficiency, which also equals higher state allocated funding for our transportation department, which is a necessity. Now I said all, but I meant most districts strive to achieve that. Some choose to deviate. And in conversations leading up to this meeting with our governing body, DPI, one of our advisors made a comment that any deviation from this maximum efficiency formula could not be morally or financially supported. So, higher ridership, higher efficiency, higher funding. On the flip side of that, lower efficiency means higher local funding, which means usage of local tax dollars, which is, my opinion, not a conscientious way to work a transportation department. And for just examples on that note, 2015-16 school year, which is the numbers we have right now, Currituck County achieved a 95% efficiency rating. That 95% efficiency rating equated to about $11,000 usage from our local funds. One of our local neighboring counties achieved an 88% efficiency rating, basically using $52,000 of their local funds. That's 7% down. Another neighboring county went to 83% efficiency for a grand total net use of their local funds of $356,000. So you see how lessening efficiency decreases our state funding and causes us to use local funding. So,
Can I add one thing in there,
Go ahead.
Mr. Wong? Off of that, when he says that we spent $11,000 off of our efficiency rating gained us $1.6 million in state funding. So we were only picking up $11,000 on an over $1.6 million transportation budget.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. To the topic of Knott's Island, which is what everybody's really here to talk about. I'll call him my transportation guru. Jimmy has all these bus routes in his head. And when he sits down in the summertime to create these routes, he's thinking maximum efficiency as a good steward, a good representative, a good employee of Currituck County Schools. Last year, or I'm sorry, 2015-16's numbers, we did run 2 buses on Knott's Island, 2 66-passenger buses to transport 46 total students. So if you split that in half, we had 23 students on 66 passenger buses for a 35% efficiency rating on Knott's Island. Based on an initial review from DPI this year on our 1 bus route, which we thought was going to be the right thing to do for maximum efficiency, based on a review of that 172 passenger bus route, we're at an 85% efficiency rating for Knott's Island, which we're hoping will mean a bump of a percentage point or 2 on our overall efficiency for more or maximum state allocated funding.
What was our efficiency rating last year overall?
Well, we're a year behind, correct, Jimmy? So we don't have the numbers for last year yet.
Didn't we hit 100%?
We hit 100 in 2014-15.
Okay, I knew we had done.
And then 15-16 was 95. We don't know about this year yet. So we're hoping, if we were standing here a year from now, we'd be thinking better based on that route that we did in Knott's Island.
But how do we do that, Matt? Because if Knott's Island's at 35%, how do we get an overall 100% countywide? How do we do that?
There are a lot of things that DPI uses in their formulas that we don't really know. It's based on salaries, it's based on route lengths, it's based on ridership, but basically they tell us maximize your space on your bus,
right?
And that's going to maximize how we fund you.
Okay.
So
last year,
yes,
with 2 buses, are you saying we only spent out of the local tax dollars $11,000?
15-16. Year before.
That was 15-16.
Okay, the year before.
Yes.
But we had 2 buses on Knott's Island, and we spent 11,000 local tax dollars.
Yes.
Okay. And when you make these comparisons with these counties, and I'm not disputing that they were less efficient, but were their transportation budgets similar? There was no point to that.
The ones that I was talking about, yes.
Okay.
About the same amount of schools, same amount of students riding.
All right. And I guess, is there any component in that formula statewide as they're doing these efficient ratings? I heard the components, but one key one I didn't hear that I would think that might be needing to be added to that formula. Obviously, you and I can't do that right this second. But when you start talking about an hour plus ride on a high percentage of the county, not just Knott's Island, I think that's a very important factor that's left out of the equation.
It is,
so
but
when the paper meets the road, what I'm saying is we don't have a square county like some of these other counties might be a little bit more rectangular or square, if you will. We have a very long and odd-shaped county. So geographically, those formulas, when you compare them to one area to another, even though you're using similar factors, there's a lot of things that are not in there. So thus, to me, what makes sense on paper doesn't make sense because it's really not efficient if the child, for example, I was over at Central Elementary today, and he informed me that some of the pre-K students in the pre-K program have an hour ride or so. That's sad.
Well,
that's sad that somebody
that's the geographical nature of our county.
Well, then that's
and
sad.
On that note, I will say, if you let me finish one thing, we called counties across the state, and we called our governing body in DPI. Average ride times around the state are an hour plus. Average door-to-school times are 24 to 25 minutes. We fall within that. And I'm not disputing that it's not
I respect that, and I respect you're not trying to waste taxpayers' dollars and you're trying to do your due diligence.
Yes.
My point is this. When it takes away of the level of service that we are providing in a big way, then I have to question, is that a reasonable investment of savings? Meaning, would it be better to spend the money in that area and not spend it somewhere else? And obviously, a lot of people are going to have a lot of discussions about that.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest with you. I'm not real happy about kids at that age being on a bus for that long.
We're not either. I
Okay.
mean, my daughter rode a bus for an hour and a half at times, and it didn't make me happy either.
Yes, sir.
But now that I'm involved in it, I understand how hard it is to fix that financially. If you're talking decreasing our ride times to, I know we've discussed this, 30 minutes, basic calculations to get our ride times to 30 minutes, you're looking at 65 to 68 new buses at the tune of $6.5 million.
I think they could probably only add like 6 buses at the 6 elementary schools, and obviously I'm concerned about the other schools too.
Yeah.
But where the younger children, their ride time would possibly be reduced by 2/3 to half. And based on my numbers, and I don't have all the ones you have, but I'm not seeing 68 buses that are required to do that. And I'm hearing, if I wasn't mistaken in our previous conversation, a tune of a savings of $5,800 plus some additional monies for the bus driver. And then I think you said something to the nature of $1.50 per mile calculated on what the bus route was for the year. And so we went through all that. And if I'm not mistaken, we landed somewhere around $7,000. And then we talked about what the negative impact possibly would be to the funding formula, and I think that's how we come up with another $8,000 or plus $1,000. And I coupled the two together, and I said, so we're basically talking about not the whole county, but this particular instance, $15,000.
That based on the fact that we didn't have our numbers in front of us is probably low. But we're thinking, what, Mr. Stefanik? Well, you and I discussed at 25 to 30,000.
I thought it was in the
Just
20s.
Yeah, 20.
Yeah, but here's the thing, it's not just for Knott's Island. So,
Yes.
yeah.
If you solve that problem,
For Knott's Island, then you're going to have, everybody else feels like their student, their
And I
child.
agree, but however, Knott's Island had 2 buses when somehow or another 2 or 3 years ago we had 100% efficiency, and I'm still bamboozled as to how exactly that
better efficiency in other routing offset Knott's Island.
Okay.
But Knott's Island's not the only place where we made changes this year because of all of the things in the paper about funding and allocation of state funds and local funds and not getting as much local funds. We did what we thought was necessary to achieve the highest maximum efficiency.
And
all across the board.
And so therefore, you did your job.
Yes.
And I applaud you for it. But what I'm saying is, at the end of the day, if all these other transportation issues that personally I wasn't versed on around the county, and then I'm starting to become a little bit more knowledgeable.
You and me both.
And had people not been speaking about it because I wasn't aware of it, that's not necessarily their fault or my fault. But what I'm saying is if those problems exist, then my opinion is that we as a county need to work collectively as to how to fix them. But we don't just say, hey, just because it's going on around the rest of the state, we somehow use that as a reason as to justify how it's going to happen here.
Yeah.
That's just how I operate.
Well, I understand. But one thing in that statement that DPI gave me about not being able to morally or financially fund us.
Morally? I was going to ask you about that.
Basically, they're telling us that you're supposed to be good stewards of your tax dollars.
Morally?
Well, that's just the
That's the verbiage they chose?
Well, most likely.
Okay,
I mean,
well, if they said morally, I have to challenge them on that.
Well, that's okay.
Okay.
I'm just that you can if you want. I'll
I
give
mean,
you the number.
there's
It's
other
okay.
ways to save money. We
I'm
spent
just telling
$75,000
you.
this year on 2 athletic trainers. If I thought we could have spent the $75,000 and had more buses so that pre-K kids over here on this side and kids over on that side didn't have to ride for an hour and a half and impact their family's schedule, I would have done so. And I don't think that would have been immoral.
I understand that.
Well, and what I want to throw in here is if we're, I'll replace the word with morally with consistent. The state is saying that they're going to finance a bus system that's consistent from coast to coast, from the mountains to the ocean, and that's the system that they put in place. And so that's the system we were trying to run. If we wanted to get together and further discuss this issue and talk about what kind of local funding would be needed to reduce ride times district-wide, we can get into that discussion and those calculations. But what the state says about financing, even if we decide to add buses locally, my understanding is all those buses go into our efficiency report.
Yes.
And so then as our efficiency report drops, The money it takes to add those buses, that's local funding. The money we lose off the efficiency report in state funding, we have to have local funds to plug that hole as well. And so it's going to be a bigger investment than I think we know right now. And so we've got to get into all those calculations.
And I respect that. I just have two simple questions, though, honestly.
Yes.
So assuming that the community came together for a second and they determined that they did want to add some buses, hypothetically, and they knew that it might have a negative impact on the funding and we'd have to absorb it. I'm not saying they will. If you added buses that weren't 66 or 70 passenger buses, but you added buses that were 35 passenger buses over at Knott's Island, and you were running 30-some students on it because you had to add buses anyways to deal with these situations around the county. You didn't run large buses. Would it have a more positive effect running a medium to smaller bus than it would running a larger bus in the calculation?
Based on their formula, I would say it wouldn't. Go ahead, Jimmy. You know more about this. You've been doing it
Because
longer.
they calculate fuel, salaries,
Salary would be
wear
the
and tear
same.
on the bus. It's, to me, we should be calling our state senators. I don't make the formula. I don't agree with it. But I have to do what's right at the time to fulfill
Yeah.
it.
Yes.
With that being said, I'm already having a hard time to run 44 buses. I have drivers driving. Typically, some days I have 10 drivers out, and I'm begging people, please drive.
Yes.
That has bus license. If people would go out and get their bus license and help out, we just don't have the people that want to do it.
Our biggest concern when we started talking about this is not as much the expense, because if the whole county got together and decided that was the right thing to do, Jimmy and I would make it happen. Jimmy knows these routes.
I can ask him anything about an address, and he knows exactly where it is.
The big issue here is we reduce route times. We're not going to be able to keep drivers because that drops their hours, that drops their salaries, that drops their benefits. And we're having a hard enough time keeping them as it is. Like he said, last year when I took over this department, I was shocked at every day 5, 6, 8, and 10 people not showing up to work.
Yeah, we've had that problem for years.
Forever.
And it's not just
And it's not just
Currituck.
us.
Yeah,
It's every county.
What about the point Ms. Peters
they-
raised about Gibbs Woods students coming over, and how would that affect the writing funding formula? How would that impact it?
15 extra students.
15 coming from Gibbs Woods. The length would probably affect us more than anything.
Well, I think
right?
this parents should have the choices as well as Knott's Island's parents do to Currituck with that situation. But efficiency-wise, it would give them 2 buses, and they could ride right on over to Knott's Island
And
and cut the ride times down, but it might up Knott's Island.
it would also
It's-
possibly help with the capacity issues that Moyock Elementary is facing. I know that's not necessarily there, but so I like that idea.
Well, I'll
To be honest with you, just one thing on that note, based on phone calls I received the first week, if we added elementary students that we would add to Knott's Island, and we tried to get our efficiency rating better by driving around there to get them and coming back, that would kill efficiency. Plus, our phones would ring off the hook because parents are scared of their children riding across the causeway. I had 2 or 3 of those phone calls. So we get all kinds of things thrown at us from day to day, and you scratch your head and you speak with each other, you speak to the superintendent, and you try to work it out.
And with that suggestion, if we're going to, talk about redistricting, in some districts they just call that the R word, but if that's going to come up, typically boards of education have community input sessions and things like that before they finalize redistricting.
Gibbs
So
Woods
yeah,
is gonna, that's historically, they've come to Moyock, and I know you don't always have to do what you've always done,
Right.
but you also need to give those parents that opportunity to have input
to speak
in it,
through
and
it, right?
And it's
right.
their decision.
One other piece I want to talk about where Mr. Mullins talked about the bus riders hourly on task rate, their contracts. The bus driver contracts would drop in hours. In some school districts that have And again, in previous areas I've worked, I don't know about North Carolina if they have this going on in places like Chapel Hill or wherever, but areas that are a little more close together. When they have shorter bus routes like that, they go in what they call a 3-tier education system. And so you have the buses running the high school routes. Then after all the high school kids get to school, then those same buses run the middle school routes. And then after all those kids get to school, then the buses run the elementary routes. It might be difficult here, again, going back to the geographic nature of our county. That could be tough to do, and try to get the first starting time not too early, and the last starting time, whichever level it is, not too late. Because of just the sheer mileage that has to be covered for each of the districts. But that's a way that you would triple up a bus driver and their hours. Then they would still be able to get 5 or 6 hours of driving a day, and so then their actual employment contracts would remain close to the same.
Okay, the points that I'd like to make. First, it's going to take more than 6 buses to reduce students' ride time. If each bus at the elementary school has at least an hour ride, you're going to have to double the number of buses at the elementary school, not just add one. The second point, we've been able, by splitting up the route, to reduce the ride time of the students at Knott's Island to 40 minutes on one end and 25 on the other, to my knowledge. So that's less than an hour.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe Ms. Gorza can talk about what the students do, or what the plans are once they, get there.
In the morning, the first run gets in around 7:30. They go to the cafeteria. We have, so far we've got some books in there for them, and they've done coloring contests every day. In the afternoon, they go, right now they're going to the cafeteria, they get a little homework help. We're looking to get some checkers and games and that to keep them busy for the second time.
Now, are TAs monitoring that, or?
We have one TA.
Well, it would still even be cheaper to look at a second TA or or somebody to monitor in the morning and in the evening, in the afternoon, that kind of thing.
I wonder, I know you said 46 kids are riding the bus, but I know there's a
couple years ago. It's 59 now.
Okay, but I know that they have close to 80 students. So if school gets out early and all the kids have to get on the bus, we're going to be faced with a problem. Mm-hmm. I just feel like we need to have transportation coverage for every child, whether they usually ride in a car or not. And it's not just Knott's Island. Knott's Island is the only one that's here voicing concerns, but I've had calls from Central Children as well, an hour and 15 minutes, going from Central to Bells Island. Kindergarten, second grader, and I'm sure there's more all over the county. Unfortunately, we do live in a geographically challenging area, and I am not condemning you all at all. I know you work hard, but I do have concerns. Years ago, many years ago, when I was a student at Knott's Island, we had the double bus run. And one group of kids went outside and played in the morning while the second load got picked up, and then vice versa in the afternoon. And for the last several years, our staff members have not had to deal with that. And staff members at the other schools are not having to deal with that. And I hate to hear that Knott's Island's having to deal with that again. I know how much is put on teachers.
Central has one double run.
Right?
Central
has
well.
one double run. Yeah.
So Central and Knott's Island.
Mm-hmm. And just an FYI, where you talk about have buses so everybody can ride, just as an FYI, our bus numbers are just under 2,100 students riding buses, and our district population is about 4,100.
So we don't have buses for every child to ride.
Because some of them never ridden a bus in
Right.
their whole student career.
Right, so yeah, we're right about half. Right about half ride, half don't.
If you don't believe that, go by any one of the schools
Get
at
lost.
opening time.
Yeah.
Just
Drop off.
get ready for the traffic.
But I commend these gentlemen because their job was to get the efficiency rating to 100%.
Yep.
So then they do that, and then it's a catch-22
Right.
because of funding, And it's not as easy as someone may think, because unfortunately we do have those state regulations. But I'm in agreement if there's something we can do.
And we're willing to help.
Yeah, let's.
What would happen to us, Matt, if we got local funding from our commissioners and we were able to reduce the bus ride?
Mark just said that those numbers would go back into our efficiency rating, and our efficiency rating would go down. Even if we were, did I not hear you
Right.
say that?
Yeah. Matt, Lori, and I just had a quick conversation, and again, please don't put any of these numbers in the paper because they're not accurate at this point because we didn't crunch them out. But if we added the number of buses that Matt came up with, we came up with an efficiency rating that would be in the 50% or below range. And so if you just multiply 50% to the 1.6 million, we'd lose $800,000 in state funding that we'd have to pick up locally.
We were initially talking about 20 to 25 buses, decreasing us to 50% because we would be deviating from the formula. If we went to, let's please the whole county, which I hate to say it that way because I live here too and I understand the long bus routes are not nice. They're not good. There's nothing we can do about it. But if we went to the 60 to 65 bus to get everybody down to 30, who knows how that would affect our efficiency and our
And what kind of number of hours would the bus drivers have with that?
They would probably get about 2 hours a day, so they would lose for Christmas break,
And
Easter break.
I taught school for 25 years, and anybody that'll drive a bus, I'm really happy for them because that is not something I would ever do. But you're having a hard enough time with what you have. If you're offering them 2 hours, there's no point.
I think the 3-tier would be the best solution, and that would give Knox Island and other people less ride times. But changing the high school, middle school, and the elementary time, maybe all elementary is 7:30, middle 8:45, and something with 9 for the high school.
Well, don't we already have a 2-tier in place?
We do, and it's very successful at this end of the county. Northern end, they pretty much have about an hour bus ride for each way to school. For both homes.
Well,
A simple thing I did, and it's again not scientific at all, but it goes to Karen's little chapter she read in the beginning. Try to do one thing at a time. When I had a chance just to sit there and just think about this, if you've got a 50-passenger bus, and let's just say that this is a unique bus and there are no brothers or sisters on the bus, so every person is a different stop, and you say that a stop just roughly is 30 seconds. You have 25 minutes just in the stops. And then whatever mileage you have to travel on the road to get back from the stops to the school, you add that in, so it doesn't take that many miles to get yourself up past a half an hour, up into the 40, 45-minute range. And so with some of the distances these buses have to travel, if they have 50, 60 students on the buses, you're going to be up around hour, bus times. And you'd have to be way down, I think, when we talked about some of the buses that to get down to a half an hour, we'd have 15, 20 students on the buses because they live such a distance from the school. The time would just be road time, and you couldn't make the number of stops that you need to make on a regular bus.
We talked about it briefly, and I think Jimmy and I discussed it. In some locations, 30 minutes would not even be achievable no matter what we did. I mean, unless we're running one.
We have to remember buses can go 45. There's a governor item in the state says 45 is the max for a school bus to go. So, where you're in your car, you're going 55, 60. That slows down the process as well.
Is there any possibility of, and I recognize in addition to having the Long County, we've got the big highway that, kids don't really need to be crossing. So that makes it additionally difficult. Mm-hmm. Is there any ways that can be maybe reducing the stops in some of these neighborhoods or things like that, so that, like, some of the buses I follow, stop pretty much all the way, every little stop. And I know that that might not be ideal in every situation, but I think if we could figure out any way to reduce the ride time, I think we're heading in the right direction. And
On that note, just to shine a light on how hard this man's job is, he does those stops because he's trying to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we get complained to for a child having to go from their driveway to 2 doors down. So if we went to a centralized stop, who knows what kind of complaints we would get. So you're teetering on the side of getting complaints all the
You're
time.
never going to make everybody happy.
Exactly.
Look,
Exactly. And we try, but it doesn't work.
I'm a perfect example. What I know is, last year, those kids over there weren't faced with the problem they're faced with this year. And very well, it could have been going on around the county, and I wasn't aware of it because I
always
championed
has
for
been.
those kids just as hard as I'm the champion for the ones over there.
Yes.
Right? But somehow or another, we had 100% efficiency rating with the 2 buses running half filled, and I'm sitting here about ready to pull the rest of my hair out so I can figure out exactly how that worked.
And we might have to get with our DPI consultant and find out how that happened.
I don't know. I just believe that having kids of that age, particularly, we want to have a slower, reduced ride time. And I think that we have 6 elementary schools. Maybe we should focus on them first. That's what I believe.
If all of you want to sit down with us and help us figure that out, we'd be glad to work with you. We don't like the ride times any more than you do. And like you said, we're doing the best we can, and that man works wonders with what he has every day.
If I've been doing what I've been doing, not that I'm a genius, as long as I've been doing what I've been doing, talking about things in the school system and beating on doors and going around talking to people, I didn't realize that a lot of these kids were faced with some of the problems I'm now realizing, then that's part of the communication from the community and everyone else. And I'm not casting any blame. I'm just saying I was at awe to understand that there's full day pre-K students that had got at Central. They got an hour-plus ride. I couldn't believe it. Okay? I couldn't believe it.
I understand.
Now that's and I'll talk to you, and then I'll let you in on this. That's a little bit different of a situation because they're not coming just from the central school district. They're actually coming from all points at different parts of the county, at least the northern half. And so the way to get them, to the school any quicker is going to be really difficult because some of them might be coming from as far north as the Virginia line and working their way all the way down to Central because we only have the pre-K programs at Central and Griggs, right?
Yes.
And so they travel a lot further than some of the other students do.
Our preschool doesn't get bus to preschool. We have preschool too.
Yes, ma'am, I'm aware.
Right, but that
and I think it's only half a day also.
Right.
But I was trying to.
But the Knott's Island preschool is not run by the school district. We give them space at Knott's Island to operate.
And I wasn't going to speak to that because it's similar but different. And I was just, I don't know. Look, I don't have all the answers, but I can tell you, I just don't think it's right. And I'm not saying that you aren't trying to do your
totally
job.
understand.
And I'm saying that as a community, I think we should be aspiring to do more. And it's not on you. It's on the community to figure out where their comfort level is.
Exactly.
And mine isn't there.
Okay.
And I would put out there that we're more than willing to work with our DPI consultants and see what ideas they have. If we want to get a commissioner representative and a board representative to work with Jimmy, Matt, and I, we'll sit down and try to craft whatever we can. But just so everybody knows, the state financial allocation model is the efficiency model, and if we vary off of that, then we have to get local commitments to pick up anything else that we expect for our students.
And beyond the local commitments, it affects our state allocation depending on what
Right.
we do. So
Right.
anyway.
And everybody wants the shortest ride time we can possibly
Exactly.
get with the resources that we have. We don't want anybody on the buses.
Am I correct that you said even if we come up with local funding to do more,
Yes.
they're still going to put those buses in our efficiency route no matter
Yes.
what we do?
Right, our local funding, right.
Okay.
Right, our local funding is any expense that we add in,
Okay.
and then
I
the
just wanted-
difference in the efficiency rating, we have to pick that up too.
Yeah, we can only speculate somewhere below 50. So that's going to hurt us dramatically. Thank you for your time.
Jimmy, Matt, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, information items. Our next work session will be Thursday, October 5th at the Knapp Professional Learning Center at 4. Next Board of Education meeting will be Thursday, October 5th, right here at 6:30. Okay, board member and superintendent comments, and we'll start with Superintendent Stefanik, so I don't forget him.
Thank you, Dr. Dobney. I'm going to play off of Tyler's little safety announcement that he made before his school announcements. We've got some tropical systems spinning in the Atlantic, and actually there's one in the Gulf, and I'm hoping we don't have to worry about the one in the Gulf, and we can just concentrate on the two in the Atlantic. And it also has to do with the tropical system that never made it to name status last week. When we make decisions about school delays, school closings, the safety of our students is first and foremost in our thoughts. But what we do is we're in contact with emergency management here in the county, and we've got website links to the National Weather Service out of Wakefield, Virginia. What we look at is we look at as much data as we possibly can, and in my mind, I try to get to a timeline, a fixed timeline when the weather system is going to affect our county at the highest level. And when we get to that point, then decisions are made. And I know it's been reported to me about all the conversations on Facebook and different social media that folks monitor the counties around here, and those counties have to make the decisions that they feel is best for their counties. I'm trying to go off of the data, not any emotion about whatever this county does. We have to do the same thing. We're trying to go off of the weather data as best we can. Example, the last one, when we put the announcement out to the whole district, the target area was 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock. I was saying the winds didn't seem to be high enough that any of our buildings were going to be in danger. Our students were going to be either at lunch or in class, and so we said we would keep the buildings open. There was a double shift in that storm, and at one point it was supposed to switch from a 12 to 2 incident to a 2 to 4 incident, and I was sitting there, as Mr. Currituck just alluded, the little hair that I have left, I was starting to rip that out, going like everything was going fine, and then the weather report had to change, but then it changed again, and it said that the maximum impact time was going to be 5 p.m. And what a lot of folks don't know is when it was at 5 p.m., we canceled after-school events to make sure that no students were on our campuses for any school activities when that storm was supposed to hit at 5 o'clock. And the last prediction was accurate. About 5 minutes after 5, the winds picked up, the rain hit the central area here by the ferry dock, and the storm hit. So we try to do those studies and keep up with as much as we can with the National Weather Service, up to and including not sleeping, having people monitoring it in the middle of the night as they do the weather updates at the National Weather Service. So right now, we are monitoring Irma and trying to see where that's going to go. Right now, everybody knock on wood, cross your fingers, and anything else. It looks like it's going to be significantly south of us, and it looks like it's going to go inland. And so if the storm would hit like right now, it seems like the Charlotte area is going to get more of an impact of this storm than the coastal area is going to. But we will continue to monitor because it's still 4 or 5 days out, and as soon as we have information about school schedules changing or staying the same, we'll communicate that with everybody. But they're not making lightly or taken lightly or decisions made lightly. We're trying to study as much weather data as we can before we change any school schedules. Thank you.
Mr. Currituck?
Let's see. Today I visited with Knott's Island Elementary School and toured that, and Miss Gorza. I stopped by, and I believe it was, forgive me, Miss Chapel at Central Elementary, and toured that school. I'm excited that school is back in swing, and I hope everybody had the first, well, probably several weeks for some of you and a couple weeks for others. I hope everybody had a fun summer and is ready to get back to work. Anyhow, God bless Currituck County, and thank you.
Ms. Rose?
Well, my goal was to go and visit all the schools on their first day, and I didn't quite make it. I got to all of them except for the 2 elementary schools down the county, and I visited them a couple days later. See lots of good things going on in the schools, hardworking staff members, smiling students working hard, and it's just a good feeling with all of the schools. I've been at the high school quite a bit. I know they've got a lot going on. For those of you that like attending our athletic events, their athletic director has posted a schedule of all the fall sports. So if you go to our website, Currituck County Schools, Currituck County High School, and then athletics, you can find all of the events going on in the fall. We've got FFA at the high school sponsoring a bass and catfish tournament. Those of you that are interested in fishing, come out and support them. And we've got lots of going on everywhere.
Thank you. Ms. Kraft?
Yes. Congratulations to all our art winners again. I, as a person who can't draw a stick figure, am very impressed. I visited all the schools this month, a few for open house on Knott's Island on the first day of school, Currituck Middle for convocation, and others just as drop-ins. The Currituck Ministers Council has resumed their monthly meetings, and if your church would like to be involved in this effort, the effort to help Currituck County Schools, if you would get in touch with me, I'd be glad to put you in touch with who you need to talk to. Thanks.
Ms. Etheridge?
Yes, I'd like to welcome everyone back to Currituck County Schools. All our employees and staff are gearing up for another successful 2017-2018 school year. We all attended the convocation that was held at the Currituck County Middle School. Saw lots of smiling faces, staff that was eager to get back to business. I would also like to congratulate all our winners for the calendar art contest. We had a reception tonight, and it was a good turnout to celebrate their accomplishments. I was able to attend Central Elementary's open house. We had a wonderful turnout there as well, and it just brightens up my day when I see all those kids all dressed with their new back-to-school clothes and backpacks and lunch boxes and smiles on their faces, and they're ready to just absorb all kinds of information. Thank you very much, and I just want to wish everyone a great school year.
I, too, would like to congratulate the contest winners again, and all their artwork is in a student calendar. That I think there's still some left at the central office. I attended convocation, and I was able to obtain, I think it was 5 pair of NASA glasses that you could watch the eclipse with. And I had some minor contests with the teachers and just happened to give them all away and forgot to keep a pair for myself. So I told the CTE director that, Don Monroe, and Don says, got something for you. He goes out and he gets me a welding mask. He says, does the same thing. So here I am out in front of the school watching the eclipse, shirt, tie, and a welding mask. So wish I had a picture of it.
I heard that several high school staff members were doing the same thing, so he was passing out welding masks to
Really?
Some of the staff, yeah. And everybody's eyes still seem to be okay, so they must have worked. I don't know if I would have taken that risk, though, but...
Didn't I say y'all trusted Don?
Yeah. Really. And I also went and visited with Jarvisburg, Currituck Middle, and Central. And would like to remind everybody, just like Janet did, about the fishing contest. If anybody has an extra boat, I'll be willing to ride along. So, anyway, with that, do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Oh, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.